Marcus Tate sketches on his tablet, strolling down Peachtree Street under Atlanta's humid 90-degree sun, when Officer Derek Holt slams him against a squad car, accusing him of robbing a nearby store. Bystanders whip out phones, filming. As Holt spews racial slurs, cuffs Marcus and shoves him into the cruiser. Marcus, blood trickling from his brow, stays eerily calm, whispering, "You'll regret this." Holt smirks, oblivious that Marcus is the district attorney's brother, as a bystander's video explodes online. This brutal arrest will ignite a firestorm. What happens when the truth unveils? Before diving in, let everyone know where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe because tomorrow's episode is unmissable. Marcus Tate's wrists chafe against the cold steel cuffs as the squad car screeches to a halt outside Atlanta's overcrowded county jail, a gray fortress reeking of sweat and despair under the 90-degree Georgia sun. Officer Derek Holt yanks him out, hissing a racial slur that burns Marcus's ears, and shoves him through the intake doors where fluorescent lights buzz like angry wasps. The viral video of Marcus's arrest, now racking up 2 million views, fuels protests outside. Chants of justice for Marcus, echoing faintly through the concrete walls. But inside, Holt's influence runs deep, a venomous web spun through years of unchecked power. The guards, Holt's loyal dogs, sneer as they process Marcus, their eyes glinting with the same hate he saw in Holt's smirk. They strip him of his tablet, his wallet, his dignity, tossing his belongings into a plastic bin with a mocking laugh. One guard, a hulking man with a buzz cut and a Confederate flag tattoo peeking from his sleeve, spits on Marcus's shoes and growls, "You're in our house now, boy." Marcus bites his tongue, his graphic designer's mind sketching every detail, every face, storing them for the fight he knows is coming. He's not just a victim, he's a strategist, and Holt's already made his first mistake. The intake process. Here's a blur of fingerprints and mugshots, each step laced with deliberate cruelty. Marcus requests his phone call, his voice steady despite the bruise swelling on his cheek from Holt's rough arrest. The buzzcut guard snorts, phone's broken, and shoves him toward a holding cell. Marcus knows his rights, knows they're violating them, but arguing now is a trap. He needs to reach his sister, Vanessa Tate, the district attorney, whose name alone could unravel Holt's game. The cell door clangs shut, locking him in with a dozen other men, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. The air is thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and stale urine, the walls scarred with graffiti, screaming defiance and despair. Marcus scans the room, spotting a lanky man in the corner, maybe 25, with a faded Hawks cap and a nervous twitch. He's different, less hardened, his eyes darting like he's waiting for a chance to bolt. Marcus approaches, offering a nod, and the man introduces himself as Tyrell, nabbed for a traffic violation he swears he didn't commit. Marcus sees an ally, someone who might bend under pressure but could still be useful. He lowers his voice, leaning close to Tyrell, and sketches out a plan. "I need a message sent to my sister. She's got pulled. Can you get word out?" Tyrell hesitates, glancing at the guards patrolling the corridor, their batons tapping rhythmically against their palms. But Marcus is calm, his unshaken resolve, pulls Tyrell in. "Yeah, man, I got a cousin who visits tomorrow. I'll pass it along," Tyrell whispers, his voice trembling but eager. Marcus scribbles Vanessa's name and office number on a scrap of toilet paper, folding it into Tyrell's shaking hand. It's a risk, trusting a stranger, but Marcus has no choice. He feels a flicker of hope, the first since Holt's cuffs, snapped shut. If Vanessa gets the message, she'll storm this place with legal fire, exposing Holt's lies about the robbery Marcus never committed. The store's security footage, which Holt claimed showed Marcus fleeing, was a fabrication. Marcus was sketching on Peachtree Street miles away with witnesses who saw him. Vanessa will dig, and Holt will crumble. Marcus leans back against the cell wall, his bruised cheek throbbing, and allows himself a moment to believe he's outsmarted the system. But Holt's reach is a noose, tightening when least expected. The guards, tipped off by some unseen signal, conduct a sudden cell search, their boots stomping like a drumbeat of doom. Buzzcut leads the pack, his eyes locking onto Marcus with predatory glee. They tear through the cell, flipping mattresses, scattering meager belongings, and Marcus's heart sinks as they zero in on his bunk. Buzzcut grins, pulling a rusted shank from under Marcus's thin mattress, holding it aloft like a trophy. "Well, look at this," he snarls, his voice dripping with mock surprise. "Armed and dangerous, huh?" Marcus's stomach twists. He's never seen the weapon, never touched it. It's a plant, Holt's doing, a trap to bury him deeper. The other inmates shrink back, their silence a wall of self-preservation, and Marcus realizes he's alone. He protests, his voice sharp but controlled. "That's not mine. Check the cameras." Buzzcut laughs, a guttural sound that chills Marcus's spine and slams him against the wall, the concrete scraping his bruised cheek raw. "Cameras don't work for your kind," the guard spits, and Marcus knows he's not just fighting Holt but a machine that chews up black men like him daily. The guards drag Marcus to a disciplinary hearing, a sham run by a sergeant who's Holt's drinking buddy. The room is a claustrophobic box, its peeling paint and flickering bulb amplifying Marcus's dread. He tries to explain the frame-up, pointing to the viral video, the protests, the lack of evidence tying him to the shank or the robbery. The sergeant cuts him off, his eyes cold as steel, and charges Marcus with weapon possession, adding days to his detention. Marcus's hope frays, but he clings to Tyrell's promise, believing the message will reach Vanessa. He's returned to the cell, his body aching, only to find Tyrell waiting, his hawk's cap pulled low. Marcus nods, expecting confirmation, but Tyrell's twitch is gone, replaced by a smirk that mirrors Holt's. "Told the guards about your little note," Tyrell says, his voice low and venomous. "Holt pays better than your sister." Marcus's blood runs cold, betrayal slicing deeper than any cuff. Tyrell was a plant, a snake Holt slithered into the cell to crush Marcus's plan. The scrap of toilet paper is gone, likely burned, and Vanessa remains in the dark. Before Marcus can react, the cell door swings open, and Buzzcut storms in with two other guards, their batons gleaming under the fluorescent glow. "Time to learn." "Your place," Buzzcut growls, and the first blow lands, a baton cracking against Marcus's ribs, stealing his breath. He stumbles, raising his arms to shield his face, but the guards are relentless, their strikes a symphony of hate, each hit punctuated by slurs that sear Marcus's soul. Blood pools in his mouth, warm and metallic, as a boot slams into his stomach, folding him in half. The inmates watch silent, their fear a tangible weight, and Marcus realizes no one will intervene. Holt's power is absolute here, a king in a kingdom of concrete and steel. The guards drag Marcus to his feet, his vision, swimming, and toss him back onto his bunk, Buzzcut whispering, "Next time you don't wake up." Marcus lies there, pain radiating through every inch of his body, but his mind burns with defiance. He spits blood onto the floor, his eyes narrowing as he vows to expose Holt, no matter the cost. The protests outside grow louder, their chants, a distant lifeline, and Marcus knows Vanessa will sense something's wrong. Holt's won this round, but Marcus is still breathing, still fighting, and that's enough for now. The beating leaves Marcus's body screaming, each breath a knife in his cracked ribs. But his spirit is unbroken, a fire stoked by every slur, every blow. He thinks of Vanessa, her fierce eyes and unyielding will, and knows she's out there sniffing out Holt's trail. The viral video, now a national story, is a double-edged sword, amplifying the protests but painting a target on Marcus's back. Holt's not just a cop, he's a predator. And Marcus is his prey, a black man whose existence threatens his twisted order. But Marcus is no ordinary prey. He's a designer, a creator, and he'll sketch Holt's downfall with the same precision he uses on his tablet. The jail's walls close in, their graffiti a testament to countless broken lives, but Marcus sees them as a canvas, a place to carve his next move. Tyrell's betrayal stings, a wound deeper than the bruises blooming across his skin, but it's also a lesson. Trust is a luxury he can't afford. As he drifts into uneasy sleep, the chants outside blend with his heartbeat, a rhythm of resistance. Holt thinks he's caged Marcus, but he's only lit a fuse, and the explosion is coming. Marcus Tate lies on a cot in the jail infirmary, his ribs screaming with every shallow breath, the sterile stench of antiseptic barely masking the coppery tang of his own blood. The beating from Holt's guards left him bruised and battered, his cheek swollen, one eye half shut. But his mind is a steel trap replaying Tyrell's betrayal and the chants of protesters outside Atlanta's county jail, now swelling under the 95-degree sun. The viral video of his arrest, accusing him of a robbery he didn't commit, has hit 5 million views, a beacon of hope flickering through the concrete walls. But hope is a dangerous thing in Holt's kingdom, where Officer Derek Holt's corruption festers like a wound. The infirmary is no sanctuary. It's a stage for Holt's next move, and Marcus feels the noose tightening. A nurse, her badge reading Carla, checks his chart with cold efficiency, her eyes avoiding his. Marcus notices her hands tremble, a subtle tell, and his designer's instinct kicks in, sketching the room's details. The locked cabinet of meds, the flickering security camera, the faint hum of a radio in the corner. He's not just a prisoner. He's a survivor, and Holt's underestimating him again. Carla leans close, adjusting his IV, and Marcus catches a whiff of her fear, sharp as ammonia. She's not one of Holt's cronies, but she's scared, her movements jerky under the camera's gaze. Marcus keeps his voice low, barely a whisper. "You don't have to do what he says." Carla freezes, her eyes darting to the door where a guard's shadow looms. She shakes her head, lips tight, and Marcus knows she's trapped, just like him. He's about to press further when the door swings open, and Holt strides in, his boots clicking like a metronome of doom. His smirk is gone, replaced by a predator's glare, the kind that promises pain. "You're a problem, Tate," Holt says, his voice a low growl, leaning so close Marcus smells his cheap cologne. Problems get fixed. Marcus's pulse spikes, but he keeps his face stone, meeting Holt's eyes. "You're digging your own grave," Marcus replies, his voice steady despite the pain radiating from his ribs. Holt chuckles, a sound that chills Marcus's blood, and nods to Carla. "Make sure he sleeps permanently." Holt's words hang heavy, a death sentence wrapped in a smirk, as he exits, leaving Carla pale and trembling. Marcus's mind races, piecing together Holt's plan. A staged overdose labeled a suicide, to silence him before Vanessa, his district attorney's sister, can dig deeper. The protests outside, now a roar of 10,000 voices, are pushing the precinct. But Holt's not rattled. He's ruthless. Carla reaches for a syringe, her hands shaking so badly she nearly drops it. Marcus watches, his heart pounding, and notices the cabinet key dangling from her belt, a glint of opportunity. He needs evidence, something to bury Holt, and he needs it now. As Carla preps the syringe, Marcus coughs, faking a spasm, and knocks a tray to the floor. She bends to grab it, and Marcus, wincing through the pain, slips the key free, palming it like a lifeline. Carla doesn't notice, her focus on the syringe, and Marcus feels a surge of adrenaline. He's not dying today. Carla injects the sedative, or so she thinks, but Marcus clenches his jaw, spitting the fluid into his cheek when she turns away. His head swims, the placebo of fear mimicking the drug's weight, but he stays sharp, waiting for her to leave. The moment the door clicks shut, Marcus unlocks the cabinet, his bruised fingers fumbling through vials until he finds a burner phone hidden in a bandage box, likely Carla's secret. His graphic designer's precision guides him, every move calculated despite the pain shooting through his chest. He dials a journalist contact, Lena Harper, who's been covering the protests. "Lena, it's Marcus Tate," he whispers, voice hoarse. "Holt's trying to kill me, record this." He props the phone against a tray, angling it toward the door, and waits, his breath shallow, praying Holt takes the bait. Holt doesn't disappoint. He returns, alone, his face a mask of rage, unaware of the phone's tiny red light. "You think those protesters scare me?" he snarls, grabbing Marcus's collar, yanking him upright. Pain explodes in Marcus's ribs, but he stays limp, playing drugged, as Holt rants. "I own this city. Your sister's nothing. You're nothing. One more dead thug won't change a thing." Marcus's heart pounds, each word a nail in Holt's coffin, captured in grainy video. Holt slams Marcus back onto the cot, his fist raised but stops, glancing at the camera overhead, suddenly cautious. He leaves, muttering about cleaning up, and Marcus exhales, grabbing the phone. He sends the video to Lena, his fingers, trembling with triumph. This is it, the evidence to bury Holt, to prove his arrest was a racist lie, to show the world who Holt really is. The protests will erupt, Vanessa will pounce, and Holt will fall. Marcus leans back, his bruised face splitting into a grim smile, believing he's finally turned the tide. But Holt's web is thicker than Marcus knows. Lena receives the video, her inbox pinging as she prepares to break the story, but Holt's allies are watching. A precinct tech loyal to Holt intercepts the file, tracing it to the infirmary phone. Within minutes, Holt's back, his eyes blazing with a fury that makes Marcus's stomach lurch. He snatches the phone, smashes it under his boot, and grabs Marcus by the throat, his fingers like iron. "You think you're smart," Holt hisses, his breath hot on Marcus's face. "You're done." Marcus chokes, clawing at Holt's hand. But the cop's strength is unrelenting. Holt releases him only to signal two guards, who drag Marcus to a van waiting in the jail's back lot. "He's a violent threat," Holt tells the driver, a lie that seals Marcus's fate. The van speeds off, the protests' chants fading, and Marcus realizes he's not headed to court or another cell. They're taking him to Fulton Max, a maximum security prison 90 miles north, a hellhole run by Holt's supremacist allies, where black men vanish into solitary or worse. The video's gone. Lena's empty-handed and Marcus's hope is a flicker in a storm. Marcus slumps in the van, his body a map of pain, his mind racing to find a new plan. Fulton Max is a death sentence, a place where Holt's power is godlike, where guards and inmates alike will hunt him. The viral video, now a distant echo, can't save him there, and Vanessa's still in the dark, her investigation stalled by Holt's influence. Marcus's false victory, the belief that his recording would expose Holt, lies shattered under Holt's boot, replaced by a colder reality. Holt's not just a cop, he's a machine, and Marcus is a cog he's determined to crush. But Marcus's defiance burns brighter, fueled by the slurs, the beatings, the betrayal. He thinks of Vanessa, her fierce voice in courtrooms, and knows she'll sense his absence, dig deeper, fight harder. The van hits a pothole, jarring his ribs, and Marcus grits his teeth, sketching Holt's face in his mind, every line a promise of retribution. Holt thinks he's won. But Marcus is still breathing, still plotting, and that's a spark even Fulton Max can't snuff out. Comment number 1 if you're raging at Holt's corruption. Hit like and subscribe to see Marcus fight back. Can see. He survived the prison where Holt's allies rule supreme. Drop your thoughts below because the next twist will leave you speechless. Marcus Tate's bruised body jolts as the prison van lurches onto the cracked asphalt of Fulton Maximum Security Prison, 90 miles north of Atlanta, where the air reeks of diesel and despair under a 97-degree Georgia sky. The viral video of his wrongful arrest, now at 7 million views, feels like a distant dream as the gates clang shut, swallowing him into a fortress of concrete and steel ruled by Officer Derek Holt's supremacist allies. Marcus, falsely accused of a robbery and framed for a shank in county jail, knows this transfer is Holt's death sentence, a place where black men like him are crushed under the guise of justice. His ribs ache from the guards' beating, his cheeks swollen from Tyrell's betrayal, but his graphic designer's mind is sharp, sketching every detail, the razor-wire fences, the guards' sneers, the inmates' hollow eyes. He's not just a prisoner, he's a warrior, and Holt's latest trap only fuels his fire. The escort guard, a wiry man with a swastika tattooed on his knuckles, shoves Marcus toward intake, growling a slur that makes his skin crawl. Marcus bites back a retort, knowing defiance here is a spark in a powder keg, but his silence is a strategy, not surrender. Intake is a gauntlet of humiliation, the guards stripping Marcus of his county jail jumpsuit, tossing him a faded orange uniform that smells of mold. The swastika guard, badge reading Malone, leans close, his breath sour. Holt says you're trouble. Trouble don't last here. Marcus meets his gaze, his one good eye burning with defiance, and whispers, "Neither do cowards." Malone's fist twitches, but a camera overhead stays his hand, and Marcus logs the restraint, a crack in Holt's armor. He's herded to a cell block, the air thick with shouts and the metallic clank of doors, where inmates watch him like wolves sizing up prey. Fulton Max is Holt's playground, its guards and select inmates his pawns, and Marcus is the target. He's assigned a cell with a bunkmate, a hulking man named Darius, whose scarred face and quiet nod suggest he's no friend of the guards. Marcus keeps his distance, Tyrell's betrayal still raw, but Darius's silence feels safer than the cell block's predatory stares. He needs a plan, a way to reach Vanessa, his district attorney's sister, who's likely scouring Atlanta for him, spurred by the protests now spilling onto national news. The cell block's rhythm is a pulse of violence, and Marcus feels it shift. On his second day, in the cafeteria, a cavernous room of chipped tables and flickering lights, he grabs a tray of grey slop, his stomach churning from pain and hunger. He sits alone, sketching escape routes in his mind, when a group of inmates, led by a wiry skinhead with a shaved skull and Aryan tattoos, circles him. The skinhead, called Razor by the others, slams his tray down, spitting a slur that echoes through the room. Marcus tenses, his ribs screaming, but keeps his eyes on his food, sensing a setup. Razor leans in, his voice a hiss. "Holt says you're a snitch. Snitches bleed." Marcus knows this is no random fight. It's Holt's script, a staged brawl to bury him deeper. The guards, including Malone, watch from the sidelines, their smirks confirming the trap. Marcus tries to stand, to walk away, but Razor shoves him, and the cafeteria erupts, inmates, cheering as fists fly. Marcus ducks a punch, his training from college boxing kicking in, and lands a jab to Razor's jaw, but the skinhead's crew piles on, their blows a storm of hate. Marcus fights back, his knuckles splitting, but a guard's baton cracks his shoulder, dropping him to the sticky floor. The guards let the brawl rage just long enough to paint Marcus as the instigator, then drag him away, blood dripping from his nose as Razor grins, unharmed. Marcus is hauled to a disciplinary hearing, a farce in a windowless room where a warden, Holt's old academy buddy, presides. The warden, a paunchy man with a comb-over and a voice like gravel, reads the report. Marcus started the fight, assaulted inmates, defied guards. Malone testifies, lying through his teeth, claiming Marcus threw the first punch. Marcus, his shoulder throbbing, his face a map of bruises, tries to explain. Pointing to the cafeteria cameras, the protests, Holt's frame-up. "Check the footage," he says, his voice hoarse but firm. The warden snorts, dismissing the cameras as malfunctioning, a lie Marcus sees through. He's sentenced to 30 days in solitary confinement, a black hole designed to break spirits. Marcus feels the walls closing in, his hope of reaching Vanessa fading, but he clings to a spark. The protests are growing, and Vanessa's too sharp to miss his disappearance. As the guards drag him to solitary, Marcus believes the isolation will shield him from Holt's pawns, a small victory in a war he's still fighting. The cell door slams, plunging him into darkness, and Marcus exhales, thinking he's safe, at least for now. Solitary is a coffin, 6 feet by 8, with a concrete slab for a bed and a toilet that reeks of rust. The darkness is suffocating, the silence broken only by distant screams and Marcus's own heartbeat. He traces the walls with his fingers, finding scratches from past prisoners, their defiance etched in stone. Marcus uses a jagged nail from the bunk to carve a coded message, a plea for help with Vanessa's initials, hoping another inmate might find it someday. His ribs ache, his shoulder burns, but his mind is a canvas painting plans to survive. He believes solitary is a reprieve, a pause in Holt's assault, until his food tray arrives, slid through a slot by Malone's smirking face. The slop smells off, a chemical tang Marcus recognizes from his college chem class. Poison, subtle but deadly, Holt's latest move. His stomach lurches, not from hunger but dread, as he realizes Holt's allies won't stop at beatings. They want him dead, erased, a tragic accident to silence the protests and Vanessa's digging. Marcus hesitates, his hands shaking, then forces himself to sip the water, spitting out the food into the toilet, praying he caught it in time. Hours later, his throat burns, his vision blurs, and Marcus collapses, vomiting blood onto the concrete, the poison's trace enough to nearly kill him. He crawls to the slot, banging weakly, his voice a rasp. "Help," he croaks, knowing no one will come, but defiance keeps him moving. The guards ignore him, their laughter echoing down the hall, and Marcus's body screams for surrender, but his mind flashes to Vanessa, her fierce eyes in court and the protesters, their chants a lifeline. He survives barely, his stomach raw, his pulse weak, as the poison's grip fades. Marcus lies on the slab, blood crusting his lips, and vows to outsmart Holt, to turn his own game against him. Vanessa's investigation, sparked by the protests now shutting down Atlanta's streets, is gaining ground, though Marcus doesn't know it. She's found a paper trail linking Holt to the jail's guards, a thread she's pulling with relentless precision. Marcus, in his dark cell, feels her presence, a sister's bond, stronger than concrete. Holt thinks solitary and poison will break him, but Marcus's carved message, his spit-out food, his beating heart are acts of war. He's not dead yet, and that's a blade Holt can't blunt. Marcus Tate's body is a canvas of pain, his ribs cracked, his shoulder throbbing from the cafeteria brawl, his stomach raw from the poison. Holt's allies slipped into his food at Fulton Maximum Security Prison. The solitary cell's darkness clings to him like damp rot, but his mind burns bright, fueled by the distant roar of Atlanta's protests, now 10 million views strong on the viral video of his wrongful arrest. Officer Derek Holt's frame-up, accusing Marcus of a robbery he didn't commit, has landed him 90 miles from home in a prison where supremacist guards and inmates hunt him under Holt's command. But Marcus, a 32-year-old graphic designer, isn't broken. His sister, Vanessa Tate, the district attorney, is out there, her investigation into Holt's corruption gaining traction, though Marcus, isolated in solitary, can't know it. The carved message on his cell wall, a plea with Vanessa's initials, is his only tether to hope as he's dragged from solitary to a parole hearing, his last shot at freedom. The air is thick with mildew, the 98-degree Georgia, heat seeping through the prison's concrete, and Marcus steadies his breath, sketching Holt's downfall in his mind. He's not a victim, he's a strategist, and this hearing is his battlefield. The hearing room is a sweatbox, its peeling paint and buzzing fluorescent lights amplifying Marcus's dread. The parole board, 3 stone-faced men, sits behind a chipped table, their eyes cold as the handcuffs biting Marcus's wrists. The lead, Judge Harlan Voss, a grey-haired man with a voice like gravel, is Holt's ally, his name whispered in the precinct as a fixer for dirty cops. Marcus, his orange jumpsuit stained with blood and sweat, stands tall despite the pain shooting through his shoulder. His one good eye locks onto Voss, reading the contempt in his sneer, a mirror of Holt's racism. Marcus knows the deck is stacked, but Vanessa's name, his trump card, is still hidden, a blade he'll wield when the moment's right. The hearing begins and Marcus speaks, his voice hoarse but unwavering, laying out Holt's lies. The robbery never happened. The shank was planted. The cafeteria brawl was a setup. He points to the protests, the viral video, the witnesses on Peachtree Street who saw him sketching, not robbing. Check the store's cameras, he says, his words sharp, cutting through the room's stale air. Holt's framing me because I'm black, because he can. The board shifts, one member scribbling notes, and Marcus feels a flicker of hope, believing his truth is piercing their armor. Voss leans forward, his eyes narrowing, but Marcus presses on, his graphic designer's precision shaping his words like a sketch. He recounts the jail beating, Tyrell's betrayal, the infirmary's poisoned food, each act a brushstroke painting Holt's corruption. The protests, now shutting down Atlanta's highways, add weight to his plea, their chants a distant pulse through the prison's walls. The board seems swayed, the scribbling member nodding faintly, and Marcus's heart lifts. He thinks of Vanessa, her fierce courtroom presence, and believes she's pulling strings, her investigation shaking Holt's foundation. Voss calls a recess, the board retreating to deliberate, and Marcus exhales, his bruised body trembling with cautious triumph. He's done it, laid bare Holt's crimes, and the board's reaction suggests freedom is close. He imagines walking out, hugging Vanessa, exposing Holt to the world. The solitary cell, the poison, the brawl, all worth it if this hearing sets him free. Marcus closes his eyes, the pain in his ribs fading under a wave of hope, believing he's finally outmaneuvered Holt's machine. But Holt's web is a vice, crushing hope with surgical precision. The board returns, Voss's face a mask of smug authority, and Marcus's stomach twists. Voss reads the decision, his voice dripping with disdain. Parole denied, sentence extended 6 months for violent conduct in the cafeteria. Marcus's blood runs cold, the room spinning as Voss reveals doctored footage. Supplied by Holt, showing Marcus swinging first, a lie stitched together with expert cuts. The scribbling board member, now silent, avoids Marcus's gaze, bought or bullied by Holt's reach. Marcus protests, his voice rising. "That's fake, check the originals!" But Voss slams his gavel, silencing him. The guards, led by Malone with his swastika knuckles, grab Marcus, their grips bruising, and he realizes the hearing was a sham, a stage for Holt to tighten the noose. As they drag him out, Malone whispers, "Holt's got friends outside too," a threat that chills Marcus's spine. The parole denial isn't the worst blow. Holt's leaked Marcus's location to a white supremacist gang, the Iron Cross, who've been itching to settle scores with troublemakers like him. The prison yard, a concrete jungle under a blistering sun, becomes Marcus's crucible. He's shoved into the open, the guards retreating to watch, their radios silent. The Iron Cross, led by a hulking brute named Kessler, circles him, their tattoos a gallery of hate. Kessler, eyes like dead coals, spits a slur and charges, his fist a sledgehammer aimed at Marcus's skull. Marcus ducks, his boxing instincts flaring despite the pain, but Kessler's crew closes in, their boots and fists a storm of violence. A blade flashes, slicing Marcus's side, and blood soaks his jumpsuit warm and sticky. He fights back, landing a punch that cracks Kessler's nose, but the gang overwhelms him, their blows fueled by Holt's orders. Marcus collapses, his vision blurring, the yard's gravel biting his cheek as Kessler's boot looms. The guards finally intervene, not to save him but to haul him to the infirmary, their laughter a knife in his gut. Marcus, bleeding and broken, clings to consciousness, his mind screaming Vanessa's name. Holt's gang attack, orchestrated from afar, is a message. No hearing, no truth, no sister can stop him. Vanessa in Atlanta feels the shift, her investigation hitting a wall. The protests, now a national movement, pressure the mayor, a slick politician named Grayson, who's Holt's silent protector. She uncovers bank records tying Holt to Malone and the cafeteria setup, but Grayson stonewalls her, his smile a veneer over threats. Vanessa's office buzzes with aides, her phone ringing with tips, but Marcus's absence is a void she can't ignore. She knows he's in Fulton Max, knows Holt's playing dirty, but the mayor's influence blocks her subpoenas. Marcus, in the infirmary, his side stitched, his body a map of agony, doesn't know Vanessa's closing in. The gang's blade missed his vitals, a stroke of luck, but Holt's next move won't. Marcus, lying on a cot, his blood staining the sheets, vows to fight, to expose Holt, to survive for Vanessa. The protests, the carved message, his own heartbeat, are his weapons, and he'll wield them with a designer's precision. Holt thinks the yard beating is the end, but Marcus's pulse. Marcus Tate lies in the Fulton Max Prison Hospital, his side stitched from the Iron Cross gang's blade, his ribs a lattice of pain from Holt's relentless campaign. The 99-degree Georgia heat seeps through the walls, mingling with the antiseptic stench and the faint copper of his blood. The viral video of his wrongful arrest, now at 12 million views, fuels protests that shake Atlanta. But here, 90 miles north, Officer Derek Holt's supremacist allies rule. They're grip tighter than the stitches holding Marcus together. Framed for a robbery, a shank, and a cafeteria brawl, Marcus clings to the hope of his sister, Vanessa Tate, the district attorney, whose investigation into Holt's corruption is closing in, though Marcus, isolated, can't feel her progress. The parole hearing's rigged denial, and the gang's attack have left him battered. But his graphic designer's mind is a blade, carving plans in the dark. He's not a victim. He's a fighter, and Holt's latest trap, a near-fatal stabbing, only sharpens his resolve. The hospital cot creaks as Marcus shifts, his one good eye scanning the room. A locked med cart, a dozing guard, a janitor mopping the hall. Opportunity glints like a key. The janitor, a wiry man in his 50s with graying hair and a limp, catches Marcus's gaze. His badge reads Earl, and his eyes, unlike the guards, hold no hate, only exhaustion. Marcus, his voice a rasp from the poison's after effects, whispers, "You see what they're doing to me." Earl hesitates, glancing at the guard, then nods, barely perceptible. Marcus senses a crack, a man worn down by Holt's machine, not loyal to it. Over 2 days, Marcus builds trust, sharing snippets of his story. The false arrest on Peachtree Street, the viral video, the protests. Earl listens, his mop moving slower, and finally speaks, his voice low. "I got a daughter. Don't want her in a world like this." Marcus seizes the opening, sketching a plan. Earl will smuggle him out during a maintenance shift, through a service vent to a delivery truck. "I'll make sure they know you helped," Marcus promises, his words a lifeline. Earl agrees, his limp masking a quiet courage, and Marcus feels a surge of hope, believing escape is his ticket to Vanessa, to justice, to Holt's ruin. The plan takes shape under the hospital's flickering lights. Earl slips Marcus a maintenance map, scribbled on a napkin, showing a vent behind the laundry room, leading to a loading dock. Marcus memorizes it, his designer's precision locking every turn into place. The night of the escape, Earl distracts the guard with a spilled bucket, and Marcus, wincing through the pain in his side, slips from the cot, his stitches pulling but holding. He crawls into the laundry room, the air thick with detergent and mildew, and pries open the vent, its rusted screws yielding to a stolen spoon. The duct is a claustrophobic tunnel, its metal walls scraping his bruised shoulders. But Marcus moves, driven by the thought of Vanessa's fierce eyes, the protests roar, the truth about Holt's lies. He emerges in the loading dock, the night air a shock after weeks of confinement, and spots the truck, its engine idling. Earl's there waving him in, and Marcus climbs into the cargo hold, his heart pounding with triumph. The truck rolls out, the prison's razor wire fading, and Marcus exhales, believing he's outsmarted Holt, tasted freedom, won a round in this war. But Holt's shadow is a trapdoor, and Marcus is falling. The truck stops 10 miles out, not at a safe house but a deserted quarry, its gravel glinting under a half-moon. Earl steps out, his limp gone, his face twisted into a grin that mirrors Holt's smirk. "You're too easy, Tate," he says. And Marcus's blood runs cold. Earl's no savior. He's Holt's cousin, a plant woven into the hospital Jiangsu system. "I'm sorry, but I can't assist with generating or modifying images, as image generation is beyond my capabilities. However, I can help with creating a detailed textual description or narrative that could be used as a basis for visualizing or illustrating a scene, if that's helpful. If you'd like, I can continue the story, provide a detailed written description of a scene from the narrative, or assist with another aspect of your project. Let me know what you need." Marcus Tate's body screams with every step, his side stitched from the Iron Cross gang's blade, his ribs cracked from beatings, his shoulder throbbing from the staged brawl at Fulton Maximum Security Prison. The failed escape, betrayed by Earl Holt's cousin, has left him bloodied and cuffed, hauled back to Atlanta in a sweltering van under a 100-degree Georgia sun. Officer Derek Holt's frame-up, accusing Marcus of a robbery he didn't commit, has spiraled into a nightmare of planted shanks, poison, and a rigged parole hearing, all to silence him before his sister, Vanessa Tate, the district attorney, exposes Holt's corruption. The viral video of his arrest, now at 15 million views, fuels protests that choke Atlanta's streets, but Holt's supremacist allies, from guards to judges, keep Marcus chained. His graphic designer's mind, sharp despite the pain, sketches every detail: the van's rusted floor, the guard's sneer, the distant sirens. He's not a prisoner, he's a warrior, and the televised trial ahead, sparked by public outrage, here's his chance to strike back. As the van nears the courthouse, Marcus whispers Vanessa's name, a vow to bury Holt. The courthouse is a circus, cameras flashing, protesters chanting, their signs demanding justice for Marcus under a sky heavy with humidity. Marcus, in a cheap suit that chafes his wounds, is led through a gauntlet of reporters, his one good eye scanning for Vanessa. She's there, her face a mask of fury and resolve, her suit crisp despite the heat. The courtroom, packed with spectators, and live stream to millions, buzzes with tension, its oak benches creaking under the weight of anticipation. Judge Evelyn Ramsey, a stern woman with grey curls, presides, her reputation for fairness a flicker of hope in Marcus's chest. Holt sits across the room, his badge gleaming, his smirk gone, but his eyes cold as steel. Marcus's lawyer, a young public defender named Priya, leans close, whispering, "We've got this." Marcus nods, his heart pounding, knowing the truth is his weapon. The trial begins, and Priya calls Marcus to the stand, her voice steady as she asks him to recount his story. Marcus stands, his stitches pulling, and speaks, his voice hoarse but clear, a designer's precision shaping his words. He lays bare Holt's lies. The robbery never happened. He was sketching on Peachtree Street. Witnesses saw him. He details the jail beating, Tyrell's betrayal, the infirmary's poison, the prison brawl, the rigged hearing, the gang's blade. Each word is a stroke, painting Holt as a racist predator, not a cop. The courtroom gasps as Marcus drops the bomb. "I'm Vanessa Tate's brother." The revelation ripples through the room, cameras zooming, spectators murmuring, Holt's face paling for a split second. Vanessa takes the stand, her voice a blade, presenting bank records tying Holt to the jail guards, doctored footage from the parole hearing, and witness statements from Peachtree Street. She exposes Holt's pattern, targeting black men, framing them, breaking them. The protests outside swell, their chants shaking the windows, and Judge Ramsey leans forward, her eyes narrowing at Holt. Marcus feels triumph rising, his pain fading under a wave of hope. Priya rests her case, and Marcus believes the truth has won, that Holt's badge will be stripped, his lies exposed to the world. Ramsey calls a recess, the courtroom buzzing as Marcus sits, his bruised hands trembling with cautious joy. Vanessa grips his shoulder, whispering, "We've got him." The live stream spikes, 20 million viewers now, the protests a tidal wave. Marcus imagines walking free, hugging Vanessa, rebuilding his life as a designer, Holt in cuffs. The jury deliberates and Marcus's heart lifts, believing justice is close. He's fought through hell, survived poison, blades, and betrayal, and this trial, broadcast to the nation, feels like the end of Holt's reign. The jury returns, their faces unreadable, and Ramsey calls for order. Marcus stands, his stitches itching, his one good eye locked on Holt, who sits unnervingly calm. The verdict looms, and Marcus feels the weight of every blow, every slur, every trap, all leading to this moment. He's won, he thinks, the truth too loud to ignore, Vanessa's evidence too damning. The courtroom holds its breath, and Marcus allows himself a faint smile, believing Holt's empire is crumbling, but Holt's web is a guillotine and it falls with surgical precision. Holt's lawyer, a slick man named Carver, rises, producing a USB drive with a flourish. "New evidence," he says, and the screen flickers, showing grainy footage of Marcus attacking guards in county jail, a masterfully edited lie that paints him as a violent thug. Gasps ripple through the courtroom, the live stream exploding with comments, the protests outside faltering. Marcus's stomach lurches, his voice rising. "That's fake." But Carver's voice drowns him, claiming Marcus orchestrated the protests to dodge justice. Holt's allies, tech operatives in the precinct, hack the broadcast, flooding the feed with a smear campaign, doctored photos of Marcus with gang tattoos, fake texts calling him a terrorist. The jury shifts, their eyes hardening, and Marcus feels the room tilt, his triumph rotting into dread. Vanessa objects, her voice fierce, but Ramsey, pressured by a call from Mayor Grayson, Holt's silent protector, hesitates, her fairness buckling under political weight. The jury deliberates again, and Marcus's hope frays, his body trembling as Holt's smirk creeps back. The verdict lands like a sledgehammer, guilty on all charges, life in prison without parole. Marcus's knees buckle, Priya catching him, her face ashen. Ramsey sentences him to death row, her voice hollow, and Marcus's mind reels, the courtroom a blur of shouts and camera flashes. Holt stands, his badge glinting, his eyes gleaming with victory. The hacked broadcast has turned public opinion, the protests splintering under the weight of lies. Marcus is dragged from the courtroom, his stitches tearing, blood seeping through. His suit as Vanessa screams, "We'll appeal." The guards shove him into a van, the protests now a distant hum, and Marcus realizes death row awaits, a place where Holt's allies will finish what the Blade started. Vanessa, in her office, vows to fight, her aides scrambling to trace the hack, but Grayson's influence looms, blocking her path. Marcus, in the van, his blood staining the seat, feels the weight of Holt's machine, its gears grinding him down. The van speeds toward death row, 90 miles back to Fulton Max, and Marcus's mind races, sketching a new plan. The trials. Loss is a wound, deeper than the gang's blade, but his sister's voice, her promise to appeal, is a spark. The hacked broadcast, the fake footage, the jury's sway, all Holt's doing. But Marcus is still breathing, still fighting. He thinks of the protests, the millions who saw his truth before the hack, and knows Vanessa's digging, pulling threads that could unravel Grayson's protection. Holt's won this round, his smear a masterstroke, but Marcus's defiance is a fire fueled by every lie, every slur. The van hits a pothole, jarring his wounds, and Marcus grits his teeth, his one good eye burning with resolve. Holt thinks death row is the end, but Marcus's heart beats, a drum of retribution, and he'll play it until Holt's empire falls. Comment number 1 if you're furious at Holt's rigged trial. Hit like and subscribe to see Marcus's next move. Will Vanessa's appeal outsmart Holt's lies, or is death row Marcus's final stop? Share your predictions below, because the next chapter will flip everything you expect. Marcus Tate's body is a map of agony, his side scarred from the Iron Cross gang's blade, his ribs cracked from beatings, his shoulder throbbing from the staged brawl, and his spirit battered by the rigged trial that sentenced him to death row. The van from Atlanta's courthouse, sweltering under a 101-degree Georgia sun, delivers him back to Fulton Maximum Security Prison, 90 miles north, where Officer Derek Holt's supremacist allies reign. The viral video of Marcus's wrongful arrest, now at 18 million views, fuels protests that choke Atlanta's streets, but Holt's hacked broadcast, smearing Marcus as a terrorist, has fractured public support. Framed for a robbery, a shank, a brawl, and now a life sentence, Marcus clings to the hope of his sister, Vanessa Tate, the district attorney, whose appeal is his lifeline, though he's cut off, unaware of her progress. His graphic designers, mind sharp despite the pain, sketches the death row block as he's led in. Iron bars, flickering lights, the stench of despair. He's not a condemned man. He's a strategist, and Holt's latest trap, a death penalty charge, only sharpens his blade. Death row is a tomb, its air thick with the weight of lost lives, the walls etched with final pleas. Marcus, in a faded orange jumpsuit, is shoved into a 6x8 cell, its concrete slab bed cold against his stitches. The guard, a new face with a buzz cut and a sneer, slams the bars shut, spitting a slur that burns Marcus's ears. "Holt says you won't last a week," he growls, and Marcus meets his gaze, his one good eye blazing. "Tell Holt he's next," he whispers, his voice hoarse but defiant. The guard laughs, but Marcus logs the fear in his eyes, a crack in Holt's machine. He's alone. The protests chants a distant memory, but his mind is a canvas, painting plans to survive. The cell block is quiet, save for a soft tapping from the next cell, a rhythm that feels deliberate. Marcus taps back, a code born of instinct, and a voice responds low and steady. "Name's Jamal," it says, "wrongfully convicted like you." Marcus's heart lifts, sensing an ally, a spark in this dark Jamal, a 40-year-old black activist, becomes Marcus's lifeline over days of whispered talks through the walls. Framed for arson during a protest, Jamal's a tech savant, teaching Marcus to exploit the prison's outdated systems. "They monitor everything, but they're sloppy," Jamal says, his voice a mix of grit and hope. Marcus, his designer's precision kicking in, learns to hack the guards' radios, intercepting their chatter. Jamal shares a plan. Access the prison's financial server, hidden in the warden's office to leak Holt's dirty money trails, tying him to supremacist groups. Marcus sees the vision, a digital blade to cut Holt's empire. They rig a distraction, Marcus faking a seizure to draw guards, while Jamal slips a hacked radio to a trustee inmate who plants a virus in the server. Marcus, back in his cell, feels triumph rising, his pain fading under a wave of hope. The leak will hit the news, Vanessa's appeal will gain traction, and Holt's allies will scatter. He taps the wall, grinning at Jamal's response, believing they've cracked the system, turned Holt's own tools against him. The server hack works, the virus pulling bank records that show Holt funneling cash to the Iron Cross and guards like Malone. Marcus and Jamal, using a smuggled burner phone, send the files to Lena Harper, the journalist who nearly broke Marcus's infirmary video. Lena's inbox pings, her story ready to blow Holt's world apart, and Marcus feels a rush, believing the protests, now a national movement, will bury Holt. The prison's lights flicker, a sign the hack's disruption is spreading, and Marcus thinks of Vanessa, her fierce eyes in court, knowing she'll seize this evidence. He survived poison, blades, and a rigged trial, and this leak feels like the tide turning, a victory forged in code and courage. Jamal taps the wall, his rhythm a song of defiance, and Marcus joins in, their cells a fortress against Holt's hate. The guards' radios crackle with panic, and Marcus believes he's safe, that death row's walls can't hold him now, that Holt's empire is crumbling under the weight of truth. But Holt's reach is a venom, striking when hope burns brightest. The guards, tipped off by a mole in Lena's newsroom, trace the hack to Marcus and Jamal. Malone storms the block, his swastika knuckles gleaming, leading a squad of Holt's loyalists. They drag Jamal from his cell, his shouts echoing as Marcus pounds the bars, his stitches tearing, blood seeping through his jumpsuit. The guards return, their boots slick with blood, and Malone tosses a shank into Marcus's cell, smirking. "Your friend's dead. You're next." Marcus's heart shatters. Jamal's tapping silenced forever, his body found in a stairwell staged as a suicide. The guards pin the murder on Marcus, claiming he smuggled the shank to kill Jamal, adding a death penalty charge that seals his fate. Marcus collapses, his mind reeling, the burner phone smashed, the leak stalled by Holt's tech allies. Vanessa's appeal, still in motion, can't reach him here, and the protests, though roaring, feel like a fading echo. Holt's torture of Jamal, a man who fought for justice, is a message. No ally, no plan, no truth can stop him. Marcus, alone in his cell, grieves Jamal, his bloodied hands tracing the wall where their taps once sang. The new charge is a noose, tightening with every guard's sneer. But Marcus's defiance burns, fueled by Jamal's sacrifice. He thinks of Vanessa, her investigation now sniffing out Mayor Grayson's ties to Holt, though Grayson's influence blocks her every move. Marcus, his body broken but his spirit aflame, uses the last of Jamal's virus to hack one final message, a fragment of Holt's bank records sent to Lena through a guard's unsecured radio. It's a desperate move, risking everything, but Marcus vows Jamal's death won't be in vain. The protests now shutting down Atlanta's bridges are his heartbeat, and Vanessa's appeal, though distant, is his North Star. Holt thinks death row is Marcus's grave, but every tap, every hack, every breath is a rebellion. Marcus lies on the slab, blood crusting his lips, and whispers Jamal's name, a promise to fight on, to expose Holt, to survive for justice. Marcus Tate's cell on death row at Fulton Maximum Security Prison is a concrete coffin, its walls scarred with the ghosts of lost lives, his body a tapestry of pain from the Iron Cross gang's blade, Holt's beatings, and the poison that nearly killed him. The 90 miles from Atlanta feel like a chasm, the protests over his wrongful arrest, now at 20 million views, a distant roar under a 102-degree Georgia sun. Officer Derek Holt's frame-up, accusing Marcus of a robbery, a shank, a brawl, and now Jamal's murder, has chained him to a death penalty. But Marcus's graphic designer's mind is a blade, carving defiance in the dark. Jamal's death, a torture ordered by Holt, burns in Marcus's chest, but his final hack, a fragment of Holt's dirty money trail sent to journalist Lena Harper, has sparked an FBI probe into Holt's precinct. Marcus, isolated, can't know. This, but his sister, Vanessa Tate, the district attorney, is fueling the investigation, her office a war room of evidence and rage. Marcus lies on his slab, blood crusting his lips, and vows to survive, to honor Jamal, to bury Holt. The FBI probe, triggered by Lena's story, sends shockwaves through Atlanta, agents raiding Holt's precinct, seizing computers, and grilling. Guards like Malone. Marcus, unaware, feels a shift when he's moved from death row to a safer facility, a medium-security prison 30 miles south, its bars less oppressive, its air less thick with death. The transfer, ordered by a federal judge swayed by the protests, feels like a lifeline. And Marcus's heart lifts, his stitches itching but holding. The new prison, Green Correctional, is no paradise, its guards still eyeing him with suspicion. But the absence of Holt's supremacist cronies is a relief. Marcus is given a shared cell, a bunk with a thin mattress, and access to a yard where the sun doesn't burn as fiercely. He breathes easier, his one good eye scanning the block. Fewer tattoos, fewer slurs, a chance to plan. The protests now, a national movement shutting down highways, flood the news on a communal TV. And Marcus sees his face, hears justice for Marcus, and believes the FBI's digging will free him. Vanessa's investigation, he senses, is behind this transfer, her fierce will bending the system. Marcus thinks he's safe, that Holt's grip is slipping, that the truth is winning. In his new cell, Marcus meets a quiet inmate, Leon, a former mechanic with a knack for fixing radios. Leon, convicted for a theft he denies, shares Marcus's distrust of the system, and they bond over whispered talks, Marcus teaching him Jamal's hacking tricks. Leon slips him a makeshift tool, a sharpened spoon, and Marcus uses it to scratch a new message into his bunk, a backup plan with Lena's contact in case the probe falters. The yard becomes a classroom, Marcus and Leon trading strategies under the guise of card games, their eyes on the guards. Marcus feels a surge of triumph, believing Green is a turning point, a place to rebuild, to fight. The FBI probe, now headline, News has Holt on the run, his bank records splashed across screens, linking him to supremacist groups. Protests swell, 25,000 strong outside Atlanta's City Hall, demanding Holt's arrest. Marcus, watching from the yard's TV, grins, his pain fading under a wave of hope. He's survived death row, Jamal's murder, and Holt's traps, and this transfer, this probe feels like victory. A step toward freedom, toward hugging Vanessa, toward designing again. But Holt's venom is a wildfire, and it strikes when Marcus's guard is down. Vanessa, testifying before a federal grand jury, presents Holt's financials, her voice a blade cutting through Grayson's stonewalling. Her office buzzes, aides tracing money to Mayor Grayson himself, but Holt, cornered, unleashes his deadliest play. He hires an arsonist, a shadow from his supremacist network, to torch Vanessa's home, a quaint two-story in Decatur, where Marcus once sketched holiday cards. The fire roars at midnight, flames licking the sky, nearly killing Vanessa as she escapes in her nightgown, her lungs choked with smoke. Holt, ever the puppet master, pins the blaze on Marcus, leaking texts to the press claiming Marcus ordered the hit from Green, a lie spun with chilling precision. The hacked broadcast from the trial, still fresh, makes the public waver. The protest splintering as headlines scream, Tate's terror plot. Marcus, in Green's yard, sees the news, his face on every screen, and his stomach lurches, his hope rotting into dread. The guards, once neutral, now glare, their hands on batons, and Marcus realizes Holt's turned his sanctuary into a trap. The FBI probe stalls, Grayson's influence bribing key agents, and Marcus is yanked from Green, cuffed and shoved into a van back to Fulton Max's death row, the protests' chants fading. The arson's fallout is a sledgehammer. Vanessa, burned out of her home, is discredited as emotional, her testimony dismissed. Marcus, back in his old cell, feels the walls close in, the air heavy with Jamal's absence. The guards, led by Malone, taunt him, spitting slurs, claiming he burned his sister's house to silence her. Marcus's mind reels, his stitches tearing as he's slammed against the bars, blood seeping through his jumpsuit. The public, swayed by Holt's lies, turns on him, the viral video now a relic, its truth drowned in smears. Vanessa, homeless but unbroken, regroups in a motel, her aides smuggling evidence to Lena, but Grayson's shadow looms, blocking her path. Marcus, alone, scratches a new plan into his cell wall, his bloodied fingers trembling. Holt's arson, framing him for Vanessa's near death, is a message. No probe, no transfer, no sister can stop him. Marcus lies on his slab, his body a wreck, his spirit a ember. The arson's cruelty, targeting Vanessa, cuts deeper than any blade, but Marcus's defiance burns, fueled by Jamal's sacrifice, Vanessa's fight, the protest's fading echo. He thinks of Lena, praying she's holding the bank records, and Vanessa, knowing she's out there, clawing through Grayson's lies. Holtz won this round, his fire a masterstroke, but Marcus's heart beats, a drum of resistance. The FBI, probe though stalled, is a spark, and Vanessa's motel war room is a fortress. Marcus, his blood crusting the concrete, vows to fight, to expose Holt, to survive for justice. Holt thinks death row is Marcus's end, but every scratch, every breath is a rebellion, a promise to turn Holt's flames against him. Comment number 1 if you're outraged at Holt's arson. Hit like and subscribe to see Marcus's next stand. Can Vanessa rebuild her case, or will Holt's lies burn Marcus's last hope? Drop your thoughts below, because the next twist will shatter everything you believe. Marcus Tate's death row cell at Fulton Maximum Security Prison is a suffocating cage, its concrete walls scarred with despair, his body a wreckage of scars from the Iron Cross Gang's blade, cracked ribs from Holt's beatings, and a raw stomach from poison. The 90 miles from Atlanta, where protests over his wrongful arrest rage, now at 22 million views, feel like a galaxy away under a 103-degree Georgia sun. Officer Derek Holt's frame-up, accusing Marcus of a robbery, a shank, a brawl, Jamal's murder, and now arson against his sister Vanessa's home, has chained him to a death penalty. But Marcus's graphic designer's mind is a forge, crafting defiance from pain. Vanessa, the district attorney, driven from her home by Holt's fire, fights from a motel, her investigation into Holt's corruption blocked by Mayor Grayson's influence. Marcus, back on death row after the arson smear, clings to a smuggled note from Vanessa, slipped through a trusty inmate, detailing Holt's bank records. His one good eye burns as he scratches a plan into the wall, a vow to bury Holt. The appeal hearing, forced by protests and Lena Harper's relentless reporting, is Marcus's last shot. He's cuffed and driven to Atlanta's federal courthouse, the air thick with humidity and the roar of 30,000 protesters. Their signs a sea of free Marcus. The van's metal bench bites his stitches, but Marcus's heart pounds with hope. The note hidden in his shoe, a digital file of Holt's arson payment to a supremacist torchman. Vanessa, her face gaunt from sleepless nights, meets him in a holding cell, her eyes fierce despite the burns on her hands from the fire. She smuggled the file to a tech aide, who traced the payment to Holt's offshore account, a smoking gun. "We end him today," she whispers, and Marcus nods, his pain fading under a wave of resolve. The courtroom, packed with reporters, and live streamed to 40 million, is a pressure cooker, Judge Clara Hensley presiding, her reputation for integrity a beacon. Holt, in a crisp uniform, sits with his lawyer Carver, his smirk a mask over nervous eyes. Marcus, in a borrowed suit, feels the weight of every trap, every slur, and believes this gambit will break Holt's empire. The hearing begins, Vanessa taking the stand, her voice a blade slicing through the room's tension. She presents the arson file, bank transfers linking Holt to the fire that nearly killed her, corroborated by Lena's leaked records from Jamal's hack. The courtroom gasps, cameras zooming, the live stream spiking as protesters cheer outside. Marcus testifies, his voice hoarse but steady, recounting Holt's frame-up. The Peachtree Street arrest, the jail beating, the poison, the rigged trial, Jamal's torture. He reveals his identity as Vanessa's brother, a bombshell that shakes Holt's defense, Carver's face paling. Hensley leans forward, her eyes narrowing at Holt, and orders his immediate arrest, cuffs snapping on his wrists as the courtroom erupts, protesters' chants shaking the walls. Marcus's heart soars, his stitches itching but his spirit alight. Vanessa grips his hand, tears in her eyes, and Marcus believes it's over, Holt's badge stripped, his lies exposed, the truth victorious. The protests, now a national uprising, flood the streets, and Marcus imagines freedom, sketching again, hugging Vanessa under a free sky. But Holt's venom is a hydra, and victory is a mirage. As Holt is led out, His supremacist allies, a militia called the White Dawn, storm the courthouse, their boots thundering, AR-15s gleaming. The live stream captures chaos, screams echoing as militiamen, faces masked, take hostages, demanding Holt's release. Marcus, still cuffed, is shoved to the floor, a gunman's boot on his neck, his stitches tearing. Vanessa dives for cover, her aide shot dead beside her. The leader, a hulking man with a shaved head, shoots Marcus in the leg. Blood pooling on the marble, pain searing his vision. "Let Holt go or he dies," the leader barks, and Hensley, trembling, complies, uncuffing Holt. Holt strides out, smirking, his allies vanishing into the chaos, leaving Marcus bleeding, the courtroom a war zone. The live stream cuts, the public, reeling, and Grayson, watching from his office, spins the attack, blaming Marcus as a gang leader. Vanessa, discredited as biased for her relation to Marcus, is suspended, her evidence dismissed as tainted. The FBI probe, already stalled, collapses under Grayson's bribes, and Marcus, his leg a throbbing ruin, is dragged to a van, bound for a secret black site prison, a CIA-run hellhole where Holt's allies wait. The van speeds through Atlanta's outskirts, the protests' chants drowned by sirens, and Marcus's mind races, his blood soaking the seat. The militia's attack, Holt's escape, Vanessa's suspension, all orchestrated to crush their victory, are a sledgehammer to his hope. Marcus Tate's leg throbs, blood seeping from the militia's gunshot wound, his body a wreck of scars from the Iron Cross gang's blade, cracked ribs from Holt's beatings, and a raw stomach from poison, as the van speeds him to a secret black site prison, a CIA-run abyss hidden in Georgia's swamps, far from Atlanta's protests now at 25 million views. Officer Derek Holt's frame-up, accusing Marcus of a robbery, a shank, a brawl, Jamal's murder, and arson, has escalated to a terrorist label after the White Dawn's courthouse siege freed Holt. Marcus, a 32-year-old graphic designer, clings to his sister Vanessa's promise, her appeal buried by Mayor Grayson's corruption. But his mind, sharp as a blade, sketches survival in the dark. The van's metal floor bites his stitches, the 104-degree heat a furnace. But Marcus's one good eye burns, his vow to bury Holt unbroken. The black site looms, Holt's final trap, where no protests, no Vanessa can reach him. But Marcus is no victim. He's a warrior, and this hell is his next battlefield. The black site is a fortress of shadows, its barbed wire perimeter swallowed by cypress trees, the air thick with mosquitoes and menace. Marcus is dragged from the van, his leg dragging, blood trailing, into a concrete bunker reeking of bleach and fear. The contractors, ex-military mercenaries in black fatigues, are Holt's puppets, their eyes devoid of mercy. The lead, a gaunt man named Voss, badge glinting, snarls a slur and demands Marcus confess to terrorism, his voice a whip. Marcus, cuffed to a chair, spits blood, his voice hoarse. "Holt's the terrorist. I'm just a designer." Voss backhands, him splitting his lip, but Marcus's defiance burns, his graphic designer's precision logging every detail. The interrogation room's rusted bolts, the flickering monitor, the unsecured laptop on Voss's desk. He's tortured for hours, waterboarded, his lungs screaming, but Marcus clings to Jamal's memory, Vanessa's fierce eyes, the protest's distant roar. The contractors want a confession to justify Holt's smears, but Marcus gives them nothing. His silence a rebellion. Days blur into nights, the torture relentless, but Marcus's mind is a fortress. He notices Voss's laptop, its screen glowing with prison logs, a digital lifeline. Jamal's hacking lessons echo, and Marcus, during a brief unchained moment to eat slop, palms a paperclip, his fingers trembling but precise. He picks the cuff's lock, a skill honed in Fulton Max, and waits for Voss's shift change. The next night, as a storm rages, thunder masking his moves, Marcus slips free, his leg a fiery agony, and reaches the laptop. His designer's instincts guide him, navigating the system to broadcast the black site's abuse live. A grainy feed of his bruised face, Voss's slurs, the waterboard. He sends it to Lena Harper, praying it reaches her, and the feed goes viral, spiking to 10 million views in hours. Protests erupt nationwide, cities grinding to a halt, and Marcus feels a surge of triumph, his pain fading under a wave of hope. The broadcast is a blade, cutting Holt's lies, and Marcus believes it's enough that Vanessa will see that the FBI probe will revive, that freedom is close. The live stream shakes the world, Atlanta's protests swelling to 50,000. The White House issuing statements, but Holt's venom is a tidal wave, and Marcus's victory is a trap. The contractors, alerted by a mole in Lena's newsroom, storm the room, Voss's fist shattering Marcus's cheekbone, blood pooling on the concrete. They trace the hack, shutting the feed, but not before the world sees. Holt, now a fugitive, hiding in a supremacist safehouse, learns of the broadcast and infiltrates the black site, his badge discarded, but his hate a beacon. He plants a bomb, a military-grade C4 rigged to the bunker's gas line, set to erase Marcus and the evidence, in a fireball. Marcus, dragged back to his cell, hears the tick, a faint pulse under the floor, and his heart lurches. He crawls, his leg useless, blood slicking his hands, and finds the device, its red digits counting down from 10 minutes. Jamal's voice echoes, "Stay sharp," and Marcus, his fingers shaking, disarms it, cutting the blue wire with the paperclip, sweat blinding his one good eye. The tick stops, and Marcus exhales, believing he's cheated death, saved the truth. But Holt's trap snaps shut. The contractors, tipped by Holt, catch Marcus with the bomb, their boots a storm on his broken body. Voss, enraged, beats him unconscious, his baton cracking Marcus's collarbone, blood flooding his mouth. They drag him to a flooded cell, a basement pit where water laps at his chest, the air rank with mold. Voss locks the grate, smirking, "Drown, thug," and Marcus, barely conscious, feels the cold claim him. His leg, his ribs, his face all scream, but his mind clings to Vanessa, now rogue, fired as DA for bias, tracking Holt from a motel with protest leaders. She's seen the broadcast, her heart breaking, and vows to find Marcus, her aides, hacking Grayson's emails for clues. Marcus, sinking in the flood, doesn't know this, his body failing, his breath shallow. The protests, now global, are a distant pulse, the FBI probe a flicker smothered by Grayson's bribes. Holt's bomb, though disarmed, was a decoy, the flooded cell the real kill, a message. No hack, no broadcast, no sister can stop him. Marcus floats, his blood clouding the water, his spirit a ember. The broadcast's impact, sparking riots, is a spark he can't see, but Vanessa's rogue mission is a flame burning through Holt's lies. He whispers her name, his voice a bubble in the flood, a vow to survive, to honor Jamal, to expose Holt. The black site's walls, its water, its hate, are Holt's fortress, but Marcus's heart beats, a drum of defiance. Holt thinks drowning is the end, but every gasp, every thought is a rebellion, a promise to turn Holt's flood against him. Marcus Tate's body is a shattered relic, his leg bleeding from the militia's gunshot, his ribs cracked from beatings, his face swollen from the black site contractor's blows, and his lungs burning from the flooded cell where he nearly drowned. The secret CIA-run prison, hidden in Georgia's swamps, is Officer Derek Holt's final trap. A fortress 90 miles from Atlanta's protests, now at 30 million views for Marcus's wrongful arrest. Holt's frame-up, accusing Marcus of a robbery, a shank, a brawl, Jamal's murder, arson and terrorism, has buried him under a death penalty. But Marcus's graphic designer's mind is a spark, igniting defiance in the dark. Vanessa Tate, his sister, fired as district attorney and branded biased, has gone rogue. Her motel room a war room of hacked emails and protest leaders. Marcus, floating in the flood, his blood clouding the water, clings to her name, unaware she's coming. The 105-degree heat chokes the air, but Marcus's one good eye burns, his vow to bury Holt a pulse in his chest. He's no corpse. He's a warrior, and this rescue is his last stand. The flooded cell's grate rattles, a sound Marcus barely registers, his body numb, his breath shallow. Voices echo, sharp and urgent, and light pierces the water, a flashlight's beam cutting through the murk. Vanessa, leading a rogue team of protest leaders and ex-cops, storms the black site, their boots splashing as they pry the grate open. She dives in, her burned hands pulling Marcus's limp form, her voice a lifeline. "Stay with me, Marcus." She shouts and he stirs, his one good eye fluttering, seeing her face gaunt but fierce. The team, armed with smuggled rifles, fights off contractors, their gunfire a thunder in the bunker. Vanessa drags Marcus to dry concrete, her aides bandaging his leg, his blood soaking their gloves. He coughs, water spilling from his lungs, and grips her hand, his voice a rasp. "Holt's here." Vanessa nods, her eyes steel, and the team moves, tracking Holt to a warehouse in Macon, 60 miles away, where he hides with White Dawn militia. Marcus, barely conscious, feels hope flicker, believing Vanessa's rescue is the end, that Holt's cornered, that justice is close. The team smuggles Marcus to a safe house, a ramshackle cabin in the woods, where protest medics stitch his wounds, his leg a throbbing ruin but stable. Vanessa hacks Grayson's emails, finding Holt's coordinates, and broadcasts them to Lena Harper, whose newsroom amplifies the call. Holt's in Macon, a fugitive unmasked. Protests swell, 70,000 strong, shutting down Georgia's highways, and the FBI, pressured by the riot sparked by Marcus's black site feed, reopens its probe. Marcus, propped on a cot, his body screaming, joins Vanessa in a plan: confront Holt, record his confession, and end his reign. They drive to Macon, Marcus's pain dulled by adrenaline, his designer's precision guiding the trap. The warehouse, a rusted hulk under a moonless sky, is surrounded by militia, but Vanessa's team slips through, Marcus limping, a hidden camera in his shirt. He faces Holt, alone in a crate-filled room, Holt's eyes wild, his gun drawn. "You're done, Tate," Holt snarls, but Marcus, his voice steady, baits him. "Tell the world why you framed me." Holt, enraged, spills it all. The robbery lie, Jamal's torture, the arson, the militia, all to keep your kind down. The camera streams live, 50 million watching, and Marcus feels triumph, his bloodied hands trembling. Holt's confession is a blade, and Marcus believes it's over. Vanessa's team closing in, the protests a tidal wave. The warehouse doors burst open, Vanessa's team rushing, but Holt's militia counters, their AR-15s blazing. Marcus dives, his leg buckling, as Holt slips into the chaos, his confession live but his body free. The militia, desperate, detonates a bomb, a C4 rigged to the warehouse's gas tanks, the explosion ripping through Macon's night, flames swallowing crates, bodies, and hope. Dozens die, protest leaders and militia alike, the blasts roar, drowning Marcus's scream. He crawls, his leg a fiery agony, blood pooling, as Vanessa pulls him from the wreckage, her face streaked with ash. The live stream captures the inferno, the world reeling, but Holt's allies spin it, leaking texts claiming Marcus rigged the bomb as a terrorist strike. The protests fracture, Grayson's media allies labeling Marcus the mastermind, and the FBI, swayed by bribes, issues his arrest warrant. Marcus, cuffed again, his body broken, is dragged to a van, the safe house a memory, Vanessa's team scattered. She hides the confession's raw footage, a USB in her boot vowing to fight, but Marcus, in the van, feels the weight of Holt's machine, its gears grinding him down. The van speeds to Atlanta, the protests' chants drowned by sirens, and Marcus's mind races, his blood staining the seat. The warehouse bomb, Holt's escape, the terrorist label, all crush his victory, a confession that should have freed him twisted into a noose. Vanessa, rogue and hunted, is his only hope, her USB a spark in the dark. The protests, though splintered, still burn, 100,000 voices refusing to quit. Marcus, his leg a throbbing ruin, his face a map of bruises, thinks of Jamal, his tapping silenced, and Lena, praying she's guarding the truth. Holt's bomb, killing dozens, was a message. No rescue, no confession, no sister can stop him. Marcus, cuffed, smiles faintly, knowing the confession reached millions, a crack in Holt's armor. The van hits a pothole, jarring his wounds, and Marcus grits his teeth, his one good eye burning. Holt thinks the bomb is Marcus's end, but every heartbeat, every plan is a rebellion, a promise to turn Holt's fire against him. Marcus Tate's body is a broken monument, his leg oozing from the militia's gunshot. his ribs splintered from Holt's beatings, his face a swollen mask from the black site's torture, and his spirit scarred by the warehouse bomb that killed dozens and framed him as a terrorist. The van hauling him back to Atlanta's federal courthouse, under a 106-degree Georgia sun, is a steel coffin, the protests over his wrongful arrest, now at 35 million views, a fading echo. Officer Derek Holt's frame-up, accusing Marcus of a robbery, a shank, a brawl, Jamal's murder, arson and now a bombing, has branded him a national threat. But Marcus's graphic designer's mind is a furnace, forging defiance from despair. Vanessa Tate, his sister, fired as district attorney and hunted as a rogue, clutches a USB with Holt's warehouse confession, a live-stream truth seen by 50 million before the bomb's flames stole the narrative. Marcus, cuffed, his blood staining the van's floor, feels her resolve, unaware she's rallied Lena Harper and protest leaders for a final stand. His one good eye burns, his vow to bury Holt a heartbeat, and this last trial is his crucible. The courthouse is a fortress, riot police clashing with 100,000 protesters, their chants of "Free Marcus" shaking the marble halls. Marcus, in a bloodied suit, limps into the courtroom, his leg dragging, his stitches tearing but his head high. The live stream, now 60 million strong, captures every step, the nation watching as Judge Clara Hensley, her face grim, presides. Vanessa, gaunt from weeks in hiding, slips into the gallery, her USB hidden, her eyes locked on Marcus. Holt's lawyer Carver smirks, ready to seal Marcus's fate with doctored evidence, but Vanessa's team has worked in the shadows, Lena leaking teasers of the confession to reignite the protests. Marcus takes the stand, his voice a rasp, recounting Holt's crimes. The Peachtree Street arrest, the jail beating, the poison, Jamal's torture, the arson, the militia's siege. He speaks of Vanessa, his sister, the woman who never quit, and the courtroom stirs, cameras zooming, the protests outside a roar. Marcus feels hope, believing the truth backed by Vanessa's evidence will free him, end Holt's reign. Vanessa rises, her voice a thunderclap, presenting the USB. The screen flares, Holt's confession playing, his slurs, his admission of framing Marcus, ordering Jamal's death, burning Vanessa's home, rigging the bomb. The courtroom erupts, Carver's objections drowned by gasps, the live stream spiking to 80 million. Hensley, her integrity unbowed, orders Holt's arrest, FBI agents storming his Macon safe house, cuffs snapping on his wrists as he spits curses. Marcus's heart soars, his pain fading under a wave of triumph. The jury, swayed by the confession, clears Marcus of all charges, Hensley's gavel a hammer of justice. Marcus is freed, Vanessa rushing to him. Their embrace a beacon in the chaos, protesters cheering as he limps out, the sun blinding after months of cells. The protests, now a global movement, flood Atlanta's streets, 150,000 strong, and Marcus believes it's over. Holt cuffed, his lies shattered, his life reclaimed. He imagines sketching again, rebuilding with Vanessa, the truth victorious, the nation awakened. The courthouse steps are a stage, Marcus and Vanessa facing a sea of cameras, their faces on every screen. He thanks the protesters, his voice cracking, and promises to honor Jamal, whose hacking sparked the end. Vanessa vows to reform the system, her burns a badge of her fight. The crowd roars, signs waving, and Marcus feels the weight lift, his leg still bleeding but his spirit alight. He thinks of his tablet, his designs, a future unshackled. The FBI probe, revived by the confession, indicts Grayson, his bribes exposed, and Holt's precinct crumbles, officers turning on each other. Marcus and Vanessa drive to a safe house, a quiet apartment where medics tend his wounds, and he sleeps, the first time without fear, believing Holt's empire is ash, the protests a new dawn, his freedom a hard-won truth. But truth is a fragile flame and Holt's venom lingers. A week later, as Marcus heals, a whistleblower, a former White Dawn member, contacts Lena, his voice trembling over a burner phone. He reveals a chilling truth. Holt was a pawn, a cog in a national supremacist network, the Covenant, a shadow, group funding militia, bribing officials and targeting black leaders like Marcus. The warehouse bomb, the arson, the frame-ups, all bore the Covenant's fingerprints. Their reach deeper than Grayson's corruption, their goal to crush resistance. Lena breaks the story, the live stream hitting 100 million, and Marcus, watching from the safe house, feels his blood run cold. The Covenant's agents are still out there, their hit lists naming him Vanessa Lena. Holt's arrest, his confession were victories, but the war is vast, a machine of hate that never sleeps. Marcus's freedom, his embrace with Vanessa, his hope all teeter on a knife's edge, the Covenant's shadow a noose tightening anew. Vanessa, her eyes steel, pulls Marcus into a meeting with protest leaders, ex-FBI agents, and Lena, forming a secret task force to dismantle the Covenant. Marcus, his leg braced, his face scarred, joins them. His designer's precision now a weapon for justice. He vows to fight, to expose the Covenant, to honor Jamal, whose tapping echoes in his heart. The task force's first mission: infiltrate. Her Covenant rally. Hack their servers and leak their names. Marcus, no longer just a survivor, is a soldier, his sketches now maps of rebellion. The safe house hums with plans, laptops glowing, rifles stacked, and Marcus feels a new purpose. His pain a badge, his freedom a call to battle. He sits alone, staring at a photo of Jamal, his smile a ghost, and whispers, "This is for you," as sirens wail outside, a hint of the Covenant's reach. The war's next front. The courtroom's triumph, Holt's cuffs, Marcus's release all seemed final, but the whistleblower's revelation flips the narrative, a gut punch exposing racism's roots, a network that dwarfs Holt's hate. The protests, now 1 million worldwide, are a spark, but the Covenant is a storm, and Marcus's fight is just beginning. His leg throbs, his ribs ache, but his heart beats, a drum of defiance. Vanessa's task force, Lena's pen, the protesters' voices are his army, and the Covenant's shadow, though vast, will face their light. Marcus, scarred but unbowed, steps into the night, sirens closing, his vow aflame. Racism's machine never stops, but neither will he. The story of Marcus Tate unveils a brutal truth. Systemic racism is a relentless machine, crushing lives with lies, violence, and corruption, as seen in Officer Derek Holt's racist frame-up of Marcus for crimes he didn't commit. Marcus's journey, from a wrongful arrest on Peachtree Street to surviving poison, stabbings, and a black site prison, teaches us resilience against hate. His graphic designer's mind, turning pain into plans, shows that intellect and defiance can challenge even the most entrenched racist systems. Vanessa's rogue fight, risking everything to expose Holt's supremacist network, the Covenant, underscores the power of family and collective action. Jamal's sacrifice, tortured for hacking Holt's secrets, reminds us that every loss fuels the fight for justice. The story's shocking reversal, revealing Holt as a pawn in a larger racist conspiracy, warns that individual victories like Holt's arrest are not enough. The roots of racism run deep, demanding constant vigilance. Marcus's choice to join a task force against the Covenant inspires us to turn personal pain into systemic change, to honor the fallen by fighting on. Racism's machine never sleeps, but neither does resistance. We learn to stand like Marcus, scarred but unbowed, to amplify truth, and to build a world where justice isn't a dream, but a reality. Comment number 1. If you believe one voice can spark change, hit like, subscribe, and share to spread this truth. Thank you for joining Marcus's fight. May you find strength to challenge hate in your world.